Hello, welcome to another episode of Generally Speaking. I'm your host, Bill Lawrence. Today is Friday, July 18th, 2025. Let's start off with a very popular topic still in the news, Trump and what's he up to. He wants to replace the head of the Federal Reserve Board with a puppet. That's mostly what he likes to have is puppets. We should call him the big marionette master, the puppet master. He wants just a bunch of yes people with zero competence in any of the fields he places them in, and that's no different with the Federal Reserve. He gets a lot of, okay, go right ahead, sirs, with every one of his appointments, but he's raising some eyebrows with replacing the Federal Reserve. It's one thing you put someone in charge of health and human services who has no capacity whatsoever or no knowledge, no experience with health. It's one thing you put someone in charge of defense for the country with has no experience. It's one thing if you put somebody in charge of anything with no experience. But when you put it in charge of the economy, that's starting to get a little touchy to some people. So that's raising some eyebrows. But with Trump, it doesn't seem like eyebrow raising ever really, makes a difference. He still gets what he wants. At any rate, it'll be a while before that could happen since the person in charge now still has about a year to go. And if we're lucky during the midterms, we'll get some Democrats to block his appointments, and that will not happen. What else we got? Okay, Israel. Israel has been getting a pass on everything it does, the genocide, the killings that it does every day, that it is still doing. But finally, some resistance is showing up. There was a group called the Hague Group, and it met recently in Bogota, Colombia, and to say that they were going to do whatever they could to interfere with Israel's efforts at killing, wiping out the Palestinians. The efforts are mostly focused around shipping. None of these countries will allow any ships into their ports that have any arms or anything to do with the killings going on in Palestine. So there is a good sign. What else we got? Back to Trump again and the Epstein files. In one sense, the Epstein files, it's a big to do, haha. But on another hand, think about it. What is it? Oh, they were having sex. They were having sex with people with sex workers. What's so bad about that? Well, I suppose your wife might not like that, but all right, if you were having sex with underage girls, well, there's an issue there. But otherwise, you know, it- this thing about sex is so bad. Really need to change these attitudes. What else? Just some side note: there was a 7.3 magnitude earthquake in Alaska not too long ago. I've been seeing a lot more stories about geologic turmoil, quakes showing up where they don't normally show up, and more frequently. And I hope something bad isn't happening. Next topic up: Trump won the election, and he won the election. Very good. And there are some people that always wonder if any hanky panky wasn't going on in these elections, and this one is no exception. And where what brought the focus was two things. It was a statement Trump once made when he was still running about how his good friend Musk is helping him. And Musk, he knows computers. He knows computers very well, and he understands voting machines. And we won't have to worry about the outcome with Musk helping us and him knowing the voting machines. So you start wondering, with his connections to the Starlink system that transmits the data. Is he doing something with them? Okay, conspiracy theories. But here's something else. In a number of different places, and specifically, I'm going to talk about in Rockland County in New York. There was a very blue county, votes Democrat. In fact, 80% voted to a Democratic senator. And yet, here's where the anomaly comes in, the strangeness. Uh, the Democratic candidate for president, uh, Kamala, got zero. Zero. Now, there are these strange things where people will vote Democrat on the one hand and Trump on the other. I know Alexandria Ocasio Cortez in her district got lots of votes for herself. She's still in office. She stayed in office, and yet still a lot of her voters voted for Trump. And this to me just shows people are screwy in the head. They don't really have any idea what they're doing. I mean, they're voting for looks, they're voting for vibes. There's just no sense of policy. These are just herd sheep people. Anyway, so Rockland County, how many people voted for the blue senator, but nobody for Harris? Okay, it could happen, except that absolutely zero for Harris, it's a little suspicious. And this happened in several other locations, Pennsylvania as well. So, at any rate, a hand count has been requested and is going to happen. And this will be very interesting to see. I'd like to see, was this zero for Harris actually a real thing? Or was there tampering? The sad thing about it is that even if there was tampering, I'm getting the impression that Trump still stays in office. He's been certified. That's the end of it. There should be some repercussions, but the way repercussions go in this world, if the repercussions don't happen immediately, they seem to never happen. All right, what else? We got a flood recently happened in Texas, killed a lot of people. Especially attention was on a girls' camp. Young girls, eight. How many? 20 something missing. Obviously they were killed in the flood, and a lot of finger pointing about what could have been, should have been done. Especially with Trump having cut so much money to the weather reporting services. People saying this was his fault. We didn't have good warnings that the floods were coming because there weren't enough people to do the proper reporting. Well, what I've been reading was these flash floods came so quickly and that actually they were reported. It's just that they came so quickly. It actually started building up horribly at midnight, at 1, 2, 3 in the morning. When you put out a notice, nobody gets it anyway. They're asleep. So it could be there wasn't too much fault with Trump having cut the resources, but there are other finger pointings to be done. For instance, when Biden was in office, he offered how much money to Texas and actually near this region to assist with flood warnings. Why? Because there was an instance just like this one where all these children were killed in the flood previously, some years back. And the Biden administration wanted to give some money to build flood warning systems. Well, the Texans, they decided we don't need flood warning systems, but we'll take the money and we'll give ourselves bonuses, but we don't need any flood warning systems. So there's a big suit coming on that one. All right. So what else we got? Trump is being sued. Trump, he's in the news so much because he's so bad. There isn't anything good that Trump does. And here's another thing: he's being sued by Republicans. That's the other thing. All these complaints, you'd think, well, the Democrats, of course, they're always going to complain. Most of these complaints are from Republicans. Whenever judges rule against Trump, they're Republican judges. At any rate, this suit is from school districts that have had their funds frozen because Trump felt that was a good idea. I guess it was his friend Musk saying this is government efficiency. This is how we make everybody happy by trimming the fat, the waste, the budget. We're going to cut all this money that's already been allocated to the schools that the schools are expecting, and we're just going to cut it. And so a bunch of Republican counties and states are suing Trump to get that money released. All right, what else we got? The duplicity, the two-facedness of Republicans. Now, Democrats can be just as two-faced too, but I don't have any stories on them. Why? Because I follow, lefty news. So maybe that's why. But I'll tell you, if I ever find a lefty doing wrong, I'm the first one to say something about it. But in this case, I'm going to talk about the head of the House, Mike Johnson, which, just to comment on this, I always wonder why there is so much focus on Mike Johnson, the leader of the House, when we've got another body in Congress, the Senate, which is in arguably even more powerful, although maybe it's just a 50-50. But at any rate, the Senate is there, and the Senate has a leader, but you never hear anything about him. It's always about Mike Johnson and the House leader. I don't get it. But at any rate, we're talking about how these Epstein files, how they had to be, released to the public, and they were showing clips of Mike Johnson, being interviewed. How yes, this we need transparency, and these things should be released. And then when it comes time to vote, which the vote came up recently to release them, he said no. So it's the old listen, see what I do and not what I say. All right. So what else? I was going to talk about a coup attempt in Burkina Faso, but I come to learn that that was a month ago. So that's almost not worth mentioning. But I think it still is in some of the elements that belong to it. He found a convoy of 47 trucks moving along some back roads in the middle of the night, and checked them out, and they were all full of weapons. And found out that there was a whole big plot going on to overthrow his country and a couple of others in the region, another one called Mali and another one called Niger, and that this was being funded. First of all, the weapons. It was like $100 million worth of weapons, but interrogating the people who were responsible for these, who was connected to this, found out that there was $1 billion project going on that was being orchestrated by the Europeans and the United States and France. They were all in there, and the idea was overthrow the head of Burkina Faso, a guy named Traore, and Mali and Niger, and put in people more amenable to the West. We've heard the stories a million times of the West just trying to gangster mob world, take over whatever countries essentially they can, ones that aren't already, going along with the program. And here they are. They are still up to it. They haven't stopped, and that's just another indication, another showing of this is what's going on. What help? The Supreme Court. The Supreme Court recently ruled that it's okay for the United States to take immigrants, swipe them off the street, and send them to any country they want to send them to. You hear about deportations. We're going to send somebody back to Venezuela, not back to Suriname, not back to Afghanistan, not back to places that you didn't come from. Essentially, sending them back to any place in the world where someone has agreed to take them. Usually, listen, we'll give you some money if you take these people. And so, okay, sure, I'll take the money. And of course, there has to be a little promise that don't worry, when we take those people, they'll be okay. They'll be taken care of. Don't know what the details on that are, but certainly it doesn't really matter, because it's easy to say, yeah, I'll take care of them. Just give me that money. And so now the Supreme Court is saying, yeah, it's okay, send them anyway. Supreme Court is totally, I shouldn't say totally, the six of them. There are three right-headed people on there, and six total Trump sycophants. And it's one thing being a sycophant, but even being so extreme, so bad, so evil, I would say, really. That's them with them. Canada, and aluminum. Aluminum. What's aluminum in the story now for? Aluminum's a very in demand product, and Trump's put tariffs on aluminum and steel, and from Canada, and Canada is dealing with it by making arrangements with other countries, with Europe and Asia, And not only that, but since they don't want to deal with America anymore, they used to send their aluminum over, down across the border, and even dealing with the rest of the world with other people they had deals with, it would still go through the United States. Now they've built up new transportation from where these aluminum smelters are to their coast, and they've made new deep sea ports that can handle huge ships and can take this aluminum. And what's more is they're following a procedure that the United States still seems to be ignorant of or doesn't want to follow, and that's the Europeans. As much as they still are, not doing what they need to do in terms of green business, reducing the carbon output, they still are doing something, and they've got rules that they want applied if they're going to buy things like aluminum. They want it to be produced in a way that's got a small carbon footprint, and the Canadians are doing that. They're making all their plants, carbon friendly. If you That's a good word, carbon friendly. But the United States isn't. The United States is losing business left and right. It's losing business on its metals and its hard stuff, and it's losing business on its organics, on its animals, on its plants, its soybeans, its wheat, it's meat. It's just it's just doing terrible, and that's just what you get when you have a country whose only goal in life is to make money and has no consideration for the big picture. The only ones running the country are individual corporations, and the only thing they're thinking about is themselves. So, last for today's wonderful episode, Marjorie Taylor Greene, a person who's ordinarily despicable and a lunatic, nonetheless has come around to saying some good things. It's very strange. Her and Tucker Carlson and Candace Williams have been saying how Israel is bad. Number one, killing people left and right, genocide every day. They're blowing up, and there aren't any really Hamas fighters anymore. Well, no, I shouldn't say there aren't any. Of course there are, but the people getting killed are just the innocent leftovers, the people trying to make a living, the old people, old men, old women, young kids, a lot of young kids. Most of the people are under 18 there, since all the fighting people have been killed, or they're hiding in tunnels where part of Hamas. So they're just killing innocent people left and right. And so now Marjorie Taylor Greene has joined the queue, although she isn't really focusing on the killing so much. Of course not. Why would she do that? She just doesn't like us getting involved in foreign wars. Which how are we involved? Involved by spending money. She doesn't like seeing all our money going there to a country she calls a nuclear armed country, which they are, and we are having trouble paying for things here. We're going into debt. Meanwhile, over in Israel, they have free education, they have free health care. And how do they get all this free? Well, the United States gives them billions and billions of dollars every year, billions of dollars. In fact, if there's ever a time in between this year's appropriations and that last year's appropriations for their billions, the Congress says, "Say, Israel, how about a few more billion?" And they just send it over there. So any rate, it is really nice to see finally people objecting, just to Israel, that Israel is no longer this untouchable, nobody can say anything bad about it place, even though there is still a lot of energy in the people who do uh, want to lock you up for criticizing Israel. Now you say, what do you mean lock me up for criticizing Israel? Well, if you're pro Palestine, if you're against the genocide and you want to say I'm against the genocide, well, now you get labeled as anti-Semitic. You're an anti-Semite, and as a terrorist as well, is what they're doing in England now. You're a terrorist if you say anything like that. So yeah, we still got that, but it's nice to see finally we do have some anti-Israel energy coming, and hopefully, this Israel state will suffer some kind of collapse. They've got destroyed by Iran. Tel Aviv, Haifa, so many of the cities that one of their main ports, the port in Haifa, is totally useless now. They had big plans on becoming a world port, a center of uh, goods transfers, and now that's gone. People are leaving Israel by the millions. Hopefully this place will collapse eventually, but that remains to be seen. So there's uh, today's story. Hope you enjoyed it. Have a nice day.